Welcome to the Finding Financial Freedom podcast with the Frugal Physician, where Dr. Disha Spath will be your companion on this exciting financial adventure. Get ready to conquer debt, build wealth, and embrace a mindful spending lifestyle that will empower you to live life on your own terms.
Welcome to another episode of Finding Financial Freedom with the Frugal Physician. I'm your host, Dr. Disha Spath. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome a very special guest, Dr. Brittne Halford, an internal medicine physician, a money coach, and the co-host of the Wealth Minded MD podcast. Originally hailing from Flint, Michigan, and a proud alumna of the University of Michigan, Dr. Halford has not only impacted the world of medicine as a dedicated hospitalist in Boston, but has also mastered the art of managing money, empowering early career women in healthcare to find joy through savvy financial strategies. When she's not saving lives or coaching, you might find her managing her hair accessories brand, Bramlin and Rose, or sharing her journey of paying off $138,000 in student loans in just 3 years. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. Let's uncover the wealth of knowledge Dr. Halford has to offer. Dr. Halford, how are you today?
I'm well. Thank you for having me on the show.
It's my pleasure. Is it okay if I call you Brittne?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for being here. I'm super excited to hear your story. I've heard bits and pieces of it, but I really want to dive deep into how you became who you are, this amazing woman who's doing medicine and entrepreneurship and just, helping so many people along the way. So Brittne, can you start off by telling us who you are, where you're from, and what made you?
Yeah. So I'm Brittne Halford. I am from Flint, Michigan, and that really has shaped who I am. And I think how I see the world. And I probably would still have this vision of the world and how I treat people and how I see money and all of these things if I were displaced somewhere else in another state or with the same parents. So I'm from Flint, Michigan, and I am currently an internist in Boston. I am a mother of 2 small children that keep me very busy. I'm married to a physician. My husband's a psychiatrist. And on top of medicine, I am a financial coach for women. We also have a podcast, the Wealth Minded MD podcast that I host with Dr. Alicia Taylor.
Yes.
And just doing so many things. We have a hair accessories brand. So we are very busy over here. And I'm still figuring out how to manage it all well, but that is an ongoing discovery.
Wow, Flint, Michigan. So that town has been front and center of the news in our recent history. How has the political implications of that town impacted your life?
Yeah. So I don't think as a child, I actually knew anything different about my life compared to others because, you're just so engulfed in your own environment. And one of the things that I realized after moving outside of Flint, Michigan, it was actually at a party at the University of Michigan. And I was conversing with someone and he said, "Oh, you're from Flint, Michigan. I'm glad to see that you made it out." Like, okay. I don't know how to respond to that. But, I think Flint, especially more people are aware about Flint now after the water crisis.
Right.
And the destitution and the impact of that still remains. And we're going to see that play out over decades because we know that the children who were exposed, pediatricians have checked lead levels for a reason for an extended period of time. Like this is not a new development that lead can be toxic to the development of your brain. So
Right.
the neurotoxicity, we're going to see how that plays out. And it's really unfortunate. And we can talk about, my views on that on another podcast if you want, or after the podcast. But growing up in Flint, Michigan now, how I see the world and how it has impacted my view of money is that there is a lot of scarcity and a lot of poverty that I personally didn't even see growing up because I never had to want for anything. My mother, she worked as a teller in the bank and, I had my brothers and then she was married and we moved into a different house and had, kind of like the middle class lifestyle. But what I didn't realize is that we were actually growing up under the poverty line. And my mother hates for me to say this, but I did some like reverse calculations and she just managed money so well. And she was able to make meaning out of so little. So I think I really learned that from her of how to be frugal, how to appraise the opportunities for what I desire. But also, what I see now is that a lot of her decisions were based upon cost, whether or not she could afford it or not. And even though she's like in a different tax bracket, it still plays into how she makes money decisions and how I also make money decisions. So I think that that's probably the biggest impact. And it could be growing up in Flint, Michigan or growing up elsewhere, but just having an environment where there's that scarcity mindset and how that impacts how you value the decisions that you make.
Absolutely. I mean, congratulations on making it out. Um, but yeah, it's not that where you grow up, it always stays with you. And whether you completely rebound and do the exact opposite, or you appreciate the good portions of, I think the more balanced view of it is to appreciate the positive things that you learned from that experience, and then also identify what you want to take forward from that experience and what you don't. And it
Yeah.
sounds like your mom did an excellent job of making, $1,000 feel like $10,000 by making really wise money decisions. So you identified the scarcity mindset, and usually that is not something people want to carry forward. Tell me how your current life incorporates the frugality from your past and without the scarcity.
I can say the scarcity is still there to some degree. I see it coming up, and now I have an awareness. And sometimes that awareness is not always in the moment. But now, because we have been so diligent and strategic in how we have saved, I try to think about what is the worst case scenario. So if I want to do something, say I want to fly first class and I see the cost and that dollar sign, I'm like, oh, okay, is this a good use of my money? Okay, maybe not, but is it something that I want and desire? Like, how will this benefit me?
Mhm.
And what are the implications of this? Like, what will I sacrifice potentially, or what am I not going to be able to do by making this decision? It's a little bit more rational. And I may still choose not to fly first class because I'm like, well, if I pay this amount, then I won't be able to invest in a Roth IRA or do my back door. I mean, usually it doesn't come to that. Usually it's like nothing. It's just like, oh, I'm going to lose out on a couple of coffees or something like that. Like it's not a big deal, but it's a choice. It's a choice. It's not because I'm relegated towards something that I actually desire, but I'm relegated towards the worst case scenario because I can't afford it. And now I have that active decision making that incorporates the value to me and not only look at the cost. And by the way, I think a lot of people, I still go back to Flint, Michigan, by the way, because my parents still live there. So when you think about Flint, like there's a lot of love there. There are so many people that have supported me and invested in me and created me to be this woman who I am. So whenever people say that, I'm just like, I don't know. I think that because of how media portrays certain cities and how media in general, we highlight the negative aspects of things, but there are actually a lot of positive things coming out of Flint. So I just wanted to clarify that so that no one feels like, oh, it's just horrible and Brittne like hates her childhood. No, I actually really, really appreciate my childhood and I'm very grateful for everyone who's there and for my family who's still there. And it's unfortunate that society does not feel the same way.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. I actually practice medicine in Hoosick Falls, New York, which is very similar to Flint, Michigan. Do you remember that movie Aaron Brockovich?
Mm-mm.
Oh my God, I'm so much older than you.
Now I'm gonna have to Google it.
So it was a movie about water poisoning in New York, and the compound was PFOA, which increases the risk of cancer. But that was being leached into the Hoosick Falls water and is still an issue. So the movie was made about like towns like Hoosick Falls, and I think also Hoosick Falls. I might be making that up, but I'm pretty sure. To echo what you're saying, sure, there's a lot of poverty, there's a lot of sickness in this town because of the water pollution, but there's also a whole lot of community, just
Mhm.
people supporting each other. It's a rural place, everyone kind of each has each other's backs. And
Yeah.
it is, adversity creates community. And I really saw that in Hoosick Falls too. And it kind of gets a bad rap in this general area of Saratoga, but I really loved working there and enjoyed and loved working with the people there. So I can definitely relate to that. So you were talking about, frugality by choice. I don't know if you're aware, but the Frugal Physician's tagline is frugal by choice, wealthy by design. And I'm 100% with you that it feels less scarcity mindset when you're making the choice, right?
Mhm.
Considering, what can I do to make my life better? Is this big spend actually going to make my life better, or is it actually going to make my life worse, right? For the foreseeable future, Josh and I have decided not to fly first class with the kids. And it's not because we can't afford it. It's not that we couldn't do it. It's that we don't want to, for several different reasons. One being, I
Mhm.
don't want my kids to be those first class kids. Like, we made the mistake of flying first class once. And now every time we go on a plane, they're like, Mommy, are we taking a left or a right when we get on the plane? And I was like, oh my God, I don't want you to become those kids, you know?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. It's a challenge because we want our kids to have experiences that we didn't have, but
right.
then you also don't want them to be brats.
Exactly. Exactly. And also, like, what if they can't afford that when they grow up?
Mhm.
Having
Mhm.
champagne tastes on a ramen budget is not going to work for them, you know?
Right. Yes.
Plus, it's a ton of money that I could spend, actually in a country that I'm traveling in, rather
Exactly.
than on the plane on actual experiences that last longer, right?
E exactly. I think that's probably a challenge for many of us. My husband and I have spoken about this as well because I want to raise children who will be financially responsible. I want to have children who will have the grit. Like, okay, if you don't have it handed to you, then you're going to go out and create it. I want your brain to be creative about
Right.
how to work through this problem instead of it just being delivered to you on a silver platter. And I struggle with that with our children. Sometimes, they're being children and they're complaining about things with Brooke specifically because KJ's 2, he's almost 3. But it's a walk through. Let's talk about the things that we've gotten today. Let's express some gratitude towards those things. And let me also share with you that I know that this is your reality, but there are other children who do not have these privileges. And I don't want her to be fearful of like not having a nice home or not being able to have a unicorn book bag with sparkles. But I also want her to be grateful for those things and know that mommy and daddy have worked really hard in order to achieve these things, and you have to work hard too. And we will give them to you when you're able to do that. But I hear you. It is a challenge with raising children because you want them to be responsible, but you also want to give them experiences that you also didn't have.
Right, right. By the way, the book bag thing is like, it's such a thing for kids. I guess I wasn't really a book bag kind of person when I was growing up, but my kids, they have like three different book bags for
Mm.
like their, mood or whatever. And I'm totally, like you, I am not frugal on that. If they want that for their school experience, I will get it for them. But yeah, that's the thing. Anyway, let's move on to your entrepreneurial journey. So you grew up in Flint, Michigan, went to college, and then went to med school. First of all, tell me about your medical practice and then how you pivoted from that into entrepreneurship.
So, as I was thinking about this question, I don't know if it's necessarily a pivot. Reflecting on my journey to entrepreneurship paralleled with my journey in medicine, I think. As a child, I was always very creative. I can recall acutely when I was in high school, I was looking for a job, I couldn't find a job. I actually created a job and I pitched my program as like a cheerleading program to the elementary schools in the city. I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. And I think part of that comes from the frugality that my parents may not have had enough money to buy said thing that I desired, but we were able to create it in some way. And as I navigated through medicine, Northwestern for medical school, WashU for residency, while in residency, had my own little hustles of like selling things and like reupholstering and revamping furniture. But I
Wow.
like to do it because I love the creativity. And I think most of the entrepreneurship has been birthed from me trying to solve my own problems. in medicine, also, I think that there's a problem of burnout. And there are times in which I feel that I love being at the bedside and being able to care for patients. I love teaching. And I know that in order for me to do that well, I need to have a release. And so the entrepreneurship has allowed me to have a release that gives me a bit more creativity. So I've done things, Disha, from after residency as part of a startup in which I was basically helping to start up a co-working space for women who had children because I
Oh,
saw a need to get work done. And at that time, I was pregnant. I'm like, oh, how the heck am I going to get this work done with this little one here?
totally. Yeah.
I started our hair accessories brand because as women with ethnic texture hair, I am unable to sometimes always style my hair effectively. And there are times in which I just want to throw something on and I want my hair to look nice. And so, how I've done that is with using hair accessories like headbands, essentially. But when I had our firstborn, Brooke, there was no hair accessory that provided the same like satin protection and looked cute for someone her age. So we started our hair accessories brand, Bramelin and Rose. And my aunt, she sews the headbands and she makes them for children as well as adults, but also for children because that was a need that I had at the time. And then I paid off my debt and I was like, oh, well, now I've solved that problem. Let me share this with someone else. And I've become a financial coach. So there's just been this evolution of allowing entrepreneurship to be a creative outlet that helps me to be more sustained in medicine and more fulfilled in medicine.
Well, you mentioned offhand you paid off your debt. That was a huge accomplishment. Tell us a little bit about your debt payoff journey. How much debt did you have? Was it all student loan and how did you pay it off?
Yeah. So for the most part, it was all student loans. I probably had maybe like a grand or something in credit card debt, but not much credit card debt. And my approach to paying it off, so the logical approach is that I refinance my loans for a lower interest rate because I realized that I did not want to do PSLF. I did PSLF while I was in residency, but at that time, it wasn't as guaranteed as it is now. There weren't as many success stories. And how I manage my anxieties, I kind of take control. And I'm like, okay, well, this is something that I can control. Let's create a strategy so that I can pay this off. And I know that with certainty, I'll be able to pay it off. So I refinanced my loans for a 5-year term with SoFi. And it was a 3.5 interest rate. I went from a 6.8 interest rate with my federal student loans. So after that, I realized that if I just focused on what really mattered to me, spending on what really mattered, then I could pay this off more aggressively. So paying off my debt actually became like a sense of joy. And we didn't sacrifice anything. We still had our firstborn. We traveled to Thailand, to India, to Hawaii. My husband and I went to all of our friends' weddings. We ate out and we had an affordable place. It wasn't like the Ritz Carlton where we lived for our apartment, but it was a nice place, right? So we just made very specific and joy focused decisions. While also doing this, I was quite frugal and some might say cheap because I unplugged microwaves and I unplugged the TV.
Yeah, my husband doesn't believe in that. I fight that fight every day. But but that's a choice you can make. Absolutely. Tell me more about some of the frugal choices that you made that were joy-based.
So, Groupon, I don't know.
Uh-huh.
Did you ever do a Groupon?
I still do Groupons, girl.
Oh,
Anytime we travel, that's how I find what we're gonna do, especially in the country.
mhm.
Yeah, you find really cool stuff to do for cheaper, then why not?
Yeah. So I love that. And, I have not used Groupon recently. So thank you for planting that back in my brain as something I'm like, oh, Disha uses this. So let me check this out.
Welcome.
So I would do Groupon almost everything. So in Atlanta, there was a Groupon book, and it was an Atlanta pass book of all of these fantastic restaurants. And it was basically buy one, get one. So I would search on Groupon and get that book, and we would go to very nice restaurants. My husband can order whatever he wants. And then I'm just going to make sure what I order is just a little bit under what he ordered so I can get all of that for free. So that was a frugal decision. My husband at one point, he's like, Brittne, why do all of our dates that you organize have to be on Groupon?
Because it saves us money.
Exactly. I typically don't spend a lot of money on clothes. I would go to consignment shop. One of my best friends, she has the best taste in clothes. I'm like, listen, can you go through your closet? Spring cleaning time and send me some clothes. I will pay the shipping, please. So I have all of these nice outfits, Disha, that I still wear. Thankfully, I haven't changed size much since high school. So I have these great quality clothes that I really don't spend much money on clothes and things of that nature because I get those as hand-me-downs. Even now for my children, I get hand-me-downs from the community. And I always like send an email to my colleagues like, hey, is your daughter grown out of these clothes yet? It's a frugal decision, but for me, I think it's 6 months that my kids will be in the clothes. And why would I spend all of that money for something that really does not matter to them nor to me? So I still make very frugal decisions now.
I will have to say, when I grew up, clothes and consignment shopping was such a scarcity mindset thing for me because my mom was a school teacher and I also grew up in a very scarcity mindset place. Well, at least for the second half of my raising. The first half of my raising, I grew up in India in a very well-to-do family. So I had kind of both backgrounds. But anyway, clothes are important to me because I felt so deprived in that second half of my life going to consignment shops. So now, like, that's one thing I don't compromise on. I will still get, like, I do rental subscriptions, still technically secondhand because other people have been wearing them, but I'll buy them at a discount from the rental agencies, but they're still like designer clothes, but at a cheaper price. But yes, I do still try to find it, but really that's one thing I don't compromise on is like nice sweaters that don't itch, I'm like, I hate itchy sweaters and I live in the north. So like I gotta have my cashmere and I do not do not compromise.
And that's really what I love about frugality, right? Each of us are individuals, and I don't judge what someone else spends on their thing because that's your thing. You might like nice cars, you may like nice jewelry, you may like a nice home, whatever that means, but you are being very focused that this is the thing that brings me the most fulfillment, and I'm going to spend on that. And elsewhere where there might be a discount, then I'll get the discount there because it really doesn't matter if I spend less on this other thing because this other thing does not give me joy.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't have to have the cashmere right with the tag on it. As long as it's soft, I'll take it after 10 people have worn it. That's fine. But that's the thing, I don't compromise there, but I still drive a 15-year-old Honda Civic that's a stick shift, and I'm a total dinosaur.
So I think my car actually got you beat. I drive a 2005 Saturn Ion.
Girl. Do they still make parts for that?
It's quite challenging, but all of my family have worked for General Motors, so usually we can find the part.
Wow. Yeah, you got me beat there. Amazing. I love it. I got another frugal minded person on my podcast. We can keep doing this forever. For the benefit of our listeners, let us talk about the pain point that led you to decide to pay off your student loans. It's not a small decision. You said the PSLF wasn't as guaranteed. I'm totally with you. Totally made the same decision because at that point, only like less than 1% of people that applied for PSLF were actually getting it. So tell me what made you decide to pay off that $138,000 of student loans that you had?
I think it was anxiety. I think it was also when you come from an environment where there are others who would be depending on you. I did not want to carry that burden forward because I knew that interest could accumulate and could balloon in a way that wouldn't afford me the opportunities to do everything else that I wanted to do. I knew that I needed to be kind of this beacon of hope for my family, this financial stability for my family. And also, there was this strong desire to pay it forward. As I mentioned, there are so many family members, persons in my lives who've made me who I am. And I am so eternally grateful for them. And I knew with the debt that it would preclude me from some opportunities that I wanted to pursue. So it was a little bit about like trying to control some anxiety, having an opportunity to pay less over time, like literally with student loans. That is the name of the game. You can go with forgiveness, but the goal is to overall pay the least amount over time. And I also did not want to have the hassle of verifying my income with someone else, to have this income driven repayment, which is a fantastic option because it allows for the student loans to stay within an affordable range for many individuals. But say, for example, I wanted to go and, have something where I made $500,000, $600,000 a year. I didn't want to have to make that a consideration. And so it was a lot of freedom also that was built into the decision that I want to have the control. I want to be able to afford opportunities in the future. And I wanted to have the freedom to do it in a way that felt good for me.
Freedom is a big key piece of why debt payoff is so important. You can make the choice instead of the money making the choice for you.
Mhm.
So when you paid off your student loans, how'd you celebrate?
When I paid off my student loans, so that was in May of 2019, I believe. I graduated in 2016. 3 years. It was like from the point of refinancing, that's kind of where I start my mark was like October 2016, where I refinanced. And over that period of time, I paid 138,000. Honestly, we were in Boston. I had a new baby. So I'm not sure what I did. No big celebration on this end.
Oh. Well, I highly recommend that you celebrate that one day, just put it on the calendar because it is an incredible achievement. It is huge that your family is rid of that burden of that monthly payment that's not there anymore, right? And you
Yeah,
guys
yeah,
work hard to do that. So definitely
yeah.
pat yourselves on the back.
Thank you.
Yeah. So now that that's paid off, tell us a little bit about what your financial journey has been since the student loans got paid off.
Yes. So the financial journey has been beautiful and completely filled of joy. And why I say joy is because when you think about joy, it's not like happiness. I think happiness could be circumstantial, but joy is where you can find fulfillment in the moment, even when something is not as planned, even when something is going wrong. So I say all of that to say that my financial journey has not been all rainbows and unicorns. It has been filled with some moments in which I've made bad money decisions and I've had to face those money decisions. And what I love about that and what I can express gratitude towards is that I have learned so much along the way and that my journey now I share with other women. I'm so grateful for the $138,000 that I paid of student loan debt. And that was at the point of refinancing. So I paid some in residency, of course.
Mhm.
If I had not had that debt, I would not be the Brittne that I am today. I would not be the financial coach that I am today. I would not be the business owner or the mother who has a daughter who has a Roth IRA at the age of 5. And it's because I was very strategic. And once the debt was paid off, I'm like, oh, well, since I did that in 2 years and 9 months, let's see what else I can do. Let's see what else I can learn. And it's really been about intentional action of spending on what matters to me and also thinking about finances and money completely differently. I will talk to some individuals and they will say, oh, you shouldn't work more hours because when you do that, you're just going to have to pay more in taxes. I'm like, but no, that's not really how it works,
That's
right?
not, yeah. That's not the thinking we want.
But
Don't let the tax tail wag the income dog.
okay. Yes. Right. And so then I think about, okay, well, hold on. Yes, taxes are at play here, but let's play this money game. Let's figure out a strategy around that. And recently I've increased the hours that I worked much more. My mom's like, why are you working so much? Because I want to have access to a 457B account that is offered through my employer, but you have to reach a certain income threshold. And it's like maybe 10 or 12 more shifts that I have to pick up. And I would prefer to do that to be able to access this retirement account that not only allows for me to have tax free growth, not only allows for me to put money away in retirement, but also decreases that tax liability. It's just now not being afraid of the implications of money and taxes and all of some of the consequences, but how can I get strategic and actually leverage this so that it can work for me? So, like, I'm not opposed to debt. Not all debt is bad. Yes, I've paid off my debt. I didn't want that student loans, but now I have even reframed how I think about debt to say, okay, how can I leverage this so that I can make my money grow faster for us?
It's important that you brought up the fact about leverage because, debt can be used as a leverage tool basically to make your money power go farther by taking out some debt so that you can then invest on a larger scale. It does put more risk into your life, but if that's the kind of risk you're willing to take, then yes, you will get better outsized returns if things don't go wrong. And that's a risk benefit analysis. But I'm with you in that the carrying the student loans forward as leverage didn't really compute in my mind because the leverage was based on my time. It was based on me committing to work for X amount of years at full time.
Right.
And it was leveraged on my brain. And I wanted to take that leverage off my brain because why put that risk there? My time is the most important thing to me. I'm not going to take debt out against that. That's a risk benefit analysis for sure. So tell me a little bit more about what your goals are, what you're working towards as far as your money life goes.
That's a great question. When you have a partner, I think there's a lot of alignment that is
Mhm.
needed in order to form these goals. So, right now, one of the big things, the big decisions that we're making is we're purchasing a home.
Mhm.
And some would argue, is this the right purchase? Is this the right time? I think it's definitely the right purchase, but is it the right time is a better question
Mm.
because we really want to accelerate our growth, our cash flow.
Mhm.
And our goals for us to have cash rental properties and cash flowing while also maintaining some elements of sanity over here in
Right.
Boston. So, I think because we've introduced this property, our goals have shifted somewhat. But speaking more specifically to where we were before we started this home purchasing journey is to have cash flowing real estate properties that would generate X number of dollars. So to be specific, at least $2,000 more a month, right? And then it's like, how do we do that? Okay, so that would give us a little bit of leverage. It's not a lot of money, right? $2,000 is not a lot of money a month, but if it's completely passive, then that definitely helps. Not only does the real estate owning property, but then you can get all of these deductions for owning real estate, and that would help to offset some of our tax liability. Of course, we max out our 401ks, 457Bs, and put money away in brokerage accounts. So we do that every year, both my husband and I. And then now it's just thinking about our investments a little bit more strategically. One of the newest things that we've invested in is in oil and gas. This is our first year, or last year was our first year doing it. So we'll see how that plays out. But just thinking about other creative strategies that will allow us to diversify our investments a bit more.
Are you guys also doing backdoor Roths?
Yes, we do backdoor Roth IRAs, and then we put away in investments about another 100K in brokerage accounts and yeah, some other investments accounts. Actually, I'm a little under on the estimate of that because we have a few newer investments, but we're investing a decent amount. I think it's just how do we do more and how do we do it faster without incurring, like you said, some of the risk?
So it's important to know that enough goal. So what's the end game that you're playing for? Do you have one?
For me, I want to retire at 51.
Okay. Okay. Why 51?
You know what? Because that's when I did the calculations. I'm like, okay, how much can I sacrifice and put away? And I think it just depends on our income, but that was the calculation that I made and how much I could save without feeling deprived. And it took me to 51 instead of 50 or 55 or 45.
Okay.
It took me to 51. So that's the specific number when I did the calculations. Now, that was based upon the income that we had last year. Now, as our income continues to increase, then we might be able to move that closer. But at this point, I think 51. And when I say retire, I don't necessarily mean that I want to stop working. It's just the option of working. I really enjoy being at the bedside. I really enjoy caring for patients. And I think that there's a need and a role for me in medicine because of my identity of who I am as a Black woman. I think that there's a dearth of us. And I really want to care for marginalized patients and to be able to share with them, some of the cultural identity things. So I don't want to leave medicine. I want to be able to do it in my own way. I want to do more philanthropic pursuits. I want to work at like free clinics. And if they don't pay me, okay, it doesn't matter because I have enough money in the bank. That's why 51. I didn't really think about, oh, my kids will be this age or anything of that. It's just like, okay, how much can I potentially save based upon this income and not feel deprived? And that's where I landed.
Okay. Okay. Well, great. That's a very systematic way of going about it. You have a goal and a number, and you're shooting towards that and working towards that with your partner. And that's the biggest thing. I want to go backwards, and you mentioned something about money mistakes. Can you share with us a couple of money mistakes that you've made? And I ask you to do this because money mistakes create a lot of shame that holds them back from moving forward. And I
Mhm.
want them to see that even the most money savvy people make money mistakes. And it's okay to do those and still keep moving on. And you can still call yourself financially savvy going forward. It doesn't have to become your identity. Share with us a couple of money mistakes that you've made.
So, one that is still too new and it hurts my heart a little bit because I haven't resolved this issue is that we recently, admittedly, had a lapse in our insurance, our auto insurance. And it's like, how the heck do you have a lapse in your auto insurance? That's the same question that I have. And essentially, I felt that I was doing things right. We have most things, all of our bills on auto pay because we just don't have time to go through and adjust and pay things manually.
Mhm.
And there was a letter basically that came in the mail of a deal of a discount that we could get through my husband's employer. So we set our auto insurance things set up with my husband's employer and they deducted from payroll. But at some point, they did not deduct it from payroll and it switched from my husband's payroll, which it was like out of sight, out of mind. I knew that it was getting paid because my husband is still working, to now having to be paid manually. And there were a few letters that we missed. And so we had an actual lapse in our insurance, in which that's a costly mistake. Thank God we did not get in an accident or hurt anyone during that period of time, right? It cost us about $2,000 to $3,000 more than what we were previously paying for our annual plan. Not only that is that I can't switch. I have to stay with this insurance company. I cannot switch. Otherwise, it's going to just be like a worser case than what we currently have. And I don't like to feel relegated to a specific inferior position. I want to have options. That's the whole point of us being very strategic with our finances, is so that we can have options. If I want to eat at a fancy restaurant, I can. If I want to eat at McDonald's, I could do that too. And like both choices are completely valid and I have the liberty to do that. So that's one mistake. Another mistake is that I didn't thoroughly research something that was suggested to me. So in this case, my husband has a private practice as well. And our CPA at the time kind of instructed us to do a SEP IRA. That SEP IRA we thought was a good option because it had the benefit of reducing our taxable income because we could put away pre-tax dollars and then use that money, of course, to invest for retirement. However, it was an IRA. And so when you have other IRAs, you're unable to do a backdoor Roth IRA if you have funds in those IRAs without having to pay taxes twice, basically because of the pro rata rule. So for a few years, we actually kept that SEP IRA. And instead of us now saying, okay, well, let's roll this over into a 401k or something like that so that it would still give access to a backdoor Roth IRA for my husband. So for a few years, we did not do the backdoor Roth IRA for my husband because we didn't find the time, and the time is there, right? It's just like making the time, putting it on the calendar to do these things so that you can have access to other opportunities. So for many years, we did not do a backdoor Roth IRA for my husband because he had that SEP IRA and concern for pro rata rule, et cetera.
So missed opportunity. But again, keeping in mind the big picture, it's just $6,000 a year. You're also doing like a billion other things to invest. So yes, mistake. However, it's human. And now
Mhm.
you're getting to it. The fact that you've admitted it and said it and means that you're going to take action to change that.
Yeah,
So, yeah, forgiving ourselves and moving forward is a big part of money management, money
definitely.
decisions. And yeah, there are things we could do to optimize. I wish I'd known about the Roth IRA when I was a resident and I didn't. All those years were missed out. But yeah, what are we going to do? And I'll have to tell you, I also struggle with the payroll deductions with my husband. This has actually just happened to us last night. I thought he was putting money into our dependent care FSA for this year, and we're running the budget. We do a monthly money meeting. Sometimes we get behind. Another
Mhm.
mistake. Sometimes we do it 2 or 3 months. We just did February on March 18th, so we're a few days late, and failed to notice until today that for 2024, I don't think anything's been going into the dependent care FSA, and I thought it
Mm.
was.
Mhm.
And tracking his payroll deductions is much harder for me because I don't want to be that wife going into his paycheck and looking at his payroll deductions. So I leave that to him. And he's been busy and whatever. So, like, things happen. Even when you're good at managing money, sometimes you make mistakes and it's okay. You can recover from that and move forward. It's fine. But yeah, in the moment, it feels like a huge thing. Like, how the heck, I'm supposed to be a money expert. How are we not funding our dependent care FSA?
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah, and I think for most mistakes, it is circumstantial. It's not because you don't have the expertise and the awareness. It's because there are other things in life that sometimes we allow to have priority. And so it's a reevaluation of what is taking the priority, what is taking my attention, so that I cannot do these very important but unurgent tasks. And oftentimes, I love Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, by the
Yes.
way. And he says, like in his quadrant, like most of the time we're doing like these urgent and unimportant things. So, how do we start to shift our time so that we can have that focus? Because you have the awareness, right? It's just like, okay, now what are we doing? How do we make sure that we can do this every month? And I'm right there with you, Disha, getting two physicians together, not only just getting us together, because of course we get together often, but it's like, do we want to actually get together and have this money conversation when we could be doing something else? And it's like, how do we make this more pleasurable for us, more meaningful for us? Because we know that it's definitely important. It's just finding the energy and setting aside the time.
Right. Yeah. Setting up systems, however it works for your family. For my family, it works best if we sit down together and go through it together because there's so many things we find. Like, we also just found yesterday that the security system for one of our rental properties jacked up our rates by $20 a month without telling us. And we actually let it slide for 3 months and just noticed it. And we were able to call them and be like, what the heck? And they lowered it back down and gave us a refund. The stuff
Yeah.
like that, little
Yeah.
things like that come up all the time. And
Yes.
people try to bump up rates automatically for no reason on you all the time. And it takes that one phone call, but it's important. So for us, that is a huge ROI that we make the chance and we make the time to sit down and have a money meeting at least
Mhm.
once a month. At worst case, once a quarter, but once a month keeps us on track. So, anyway, that's where we choose to invest our time. Where you guys choose to invest your time, and our listeners, it's totally up to you. But like Brittne said, it's the choice. When you have the financial wherewithal, you can make the value based, joy based choices that you want in your life. And that's what gives us the power to continue to move forward, knowing that we've made mistakes, acknowledging that we made mistakes, but moving forward anyway. And
Mm.
that's how we'll get to our goals.
Definitely.
Well, thank you, Brittne. Thank you so much for your time. And I really, really appreciate you coming on. I can't wait to hear more from your podcast, more from all of your entrepreneurial endeavors. And good luck to you in your medical career as well. And hopefully, we'll be seeing a lot more of you in the future.
Yes. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And please check out the Wealth Minded MD podcast as well. And Disha, I look forward to having you on our podcast. I have talked to Leisha about it, but I'm sure she'll be cool with it because she was just on with you. So, yes, we
I hope
definitely have to
so.
have you on our podcast as well.
I would love that. Thank you so much. Wow, what a treasure trove of insights and strategies from Dr. Brittne Halford. Brittne, thank you for sharing your journey and wisdom with us. To our listeners, remember that the path to financial freedom is as unique as your fingerprints. Inspired by Brittne's journey, I encourage you to take that first step, be it paying down debt, investing for your future, or maybe even starting a Roth IRA for your little ones. To connect with Brittne and dive deeper into her world, follow her on Instagram at Brittne Halford and her podcast at Wealth-Minded MD. For more tips, tales, and tactical advice on achieving financial freedom, keep tuning in to Finding Financial Freedom with the Frugal Physician. Until next time, keep counting your blessings, not just your pennies. Stay frugal, y'all.
The content shared on this podcast should not be taken as individualized financial advice. We are here to share our knowledge and experiences, but it is crucial to consult with professionals such as accountants, financial advisors, or attorneys who can provide personalized guidance based on your specific needs.